Leaf fans are fired up, and for good reason. Auston Matthews scores 65 goals on the season. We'll get into all the stats and that fun stuff. And the Leafs may have just made the playoff chances for the Pittsburgh Penguins and Kyle Dubas that much harder. Welcome back to Leafs Digest. My name is Darius Domingues, and guys, we've noticed that about 80% of you are not subscribed to the channel. So if you want to do yourself a favor, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything Toronto Maple Leafs. We're now on the road to 7,500. We just hit 7,000 subscribers, so thank you so much for supporting Nick and I on the channel. We're going to bring you all the Toronto Maple Leafs news, and we have some special stuff planned. It's going to be very exciting, but without further ado, let's get into the game tonight. It was an exciting game that really had no business being this exciting, but Pittsburgh has climbed their way back into the playoff picture. But we'll start with kind of the storylines this morning with Michael Bunting obviously being back in Toronto. He was with the Carolina Hurricanes, now with the Pittsburgh Penguins. And it's easy to wake up for this game. He said, we're fighting for our lives here, and we know it's a big one, so I'll be ready to go. And yeah, it was a big game for Pittsburgh. They absolutely had to win this game, and unfortunately for them, but fortunately for us Leaf fans, it did work out in the Leafs' favor. And we'll take a look at the playoff standings and all that stuff later, because there's huge implications for the Leafs as well. This was a must-win game for the Leafs as well, and we'll get into it in just a second, because the schedule is not exactly the Leafs' friend as well to end the season compared to some other teams. But it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun down the stretch this season, because the playoffs already start next Saturday, and it's super exciting. But this game started pretty interesting. I mean, Bunting drawing penalties, that never happened in Toronto, right? That was kind of weird. And then Samsonov coming up big with huge saves, which were fantastic. Also stopping Bunting, which was great. A couple weak calls, Lyubushkin taking a penalty that maybe was a little more awkward than it was a penalty, just an awkward play. And the Leafs were putting together some decent shifts towards the end of the first period. But again, Lyubushkin not having his best game, and he's really struggled as of late, in his underlying numbers haven't been great in recent games as well, and that's something I've been taking a look at, and I've been praising him leading up into the last little while with, obviously the defense pairing with him and Riley, but he hasn't been that great lately. And overall, their defensive pairing, and I should mention that the lineup in general for this game wasn't really touched or largely touched since the Montreal game, where they had great success there as well. But to get back to that, he had been playing well. Lately, not playing so well. I hope he can figure it out for the playoffs. But, as a whole, that defensive pairing, they've been pretty good this season. So I have hope that he'll be able to find it, and they'll get back on track. At least you hope so, because playoffs are right around the corner. Like I said, but again, weak play from him. He lets up basically the first goal of the game. He gives it away to Malkin. Something's going to happen if you give it to Malkin. So Rickard Rakell scores on that. And then you move to the second. Brody with a great pass to Matthew Knies. Matthew Knies scores again, putting together a pretty decent rookie season after a slow start. And, he had some struggles. The NHL is much different than the NCAA, right? The schedule and all that stuff. It's all been talked about. So I'm excited to see what Knies does in the shortened season in the playoffs. That's going to be fun. I'm just juiced for the playoffs. I don't know about... Let me know in the comments. Are you ready for the playoffs, or are you not excited? I'm ready for the Leafs to be in the playoffs. I'm ready to be disappointed again, because, that's what the Leafs do. That's what the Leafs do to Leafs fans. Lots of penalties in this game, but surprisingly, and Matthews absolutely ran over Crosby there. I know he wasn't, really trying to hit him, but that was pretty crazy too. And it seemed like they were blowing the dead play every time Crosby got hit or anything like that. That was pretty weird too. Pittsburgh going up 5-1 in power plays. Okay. Heading into the third period, pretty big differential there, pretty big. So that Pittsburgh probably wasn't going to get a call in the third period. It was going to swing a little bit in Toronto's direction, maybe not even it up, but it was going to swing. And then there it is. Nylander gets tripped. Toronto gets their power play. And guys, 2 seconds into the power play, who else but the man of the year, Auston Matthews, gets his 65th on the season and joins elite company. This guy, pure goal scorer. He becomes only the 13th player in NHL history to score 65 goals. And the last guy to do it, Alex Ovechkin, who obviously is going to break the goal record. Might not be this season. It's definitely not going to be this season. Could be next year. Could be the year after. But only the 13th player ever to do that. The last guy to do it, like I mentioned, Ovechkin. Before that, it was 76 goals in the 1993-94 season. He is with elite company right now. And you know what? The Leafs have 5 games left. He can still score. He scored at a goal a game pace many times throughout his career. So he can still get to 70. It's still definitely possible, especially at the rate he's been scoring. And he is, I don't know, Auston Matthews, man. We talk about him so much that I'm running out of words to describe his play. We just expect greatness out of him now. That's what it is. We expect greatness out of him now. And I think that is a fantastic place to be if you're a fan, and obviously for the player. That is just awesome. I love that. I love that McCabe was bringing some rough stuff right after that as well. Obviously, Pittsburgh ties it with 6 minutes left. You would have liked to see the defense box them out a little bit better than they did. But obviously, the goal goes in. McCabe probably should have, that pairing, I like them. McCabe and Benoit. But I would have liked to see them box out a little bit better on that play. And then it got a little hairy. I thought Sheldon Keefe, it was pretty interesting. Sheldon Keefe puts out the 4th line against the Crosby line in the final minute of a tie game. They get the job done, but it was a little scary. I don't know if I would have done that, but listen, he's the coach for a reason. He knows his players. He felt comfortable putting that lineup out on the ice at that time, and I think that is it was definitely an interesting call. That's what I'll leave it at that. And then overtime. I mean, Pittsburgh comes out with the fast start. It was pretty scary at first, and then the Leafs get some sustained pressure. Marner looks like he's going off for a change. Doesn't. And Magic Mitch. There he is. He makes the play. He sends it in. And then Auston Matthews puts it over to Jake McCabe, who scores the overtime winner. And they cut right to Kyle Dubas and Jason Spezza. They do not look happy. The Leafs have just made Pittsburgh's playoff chances that much harder. It's still possible for them, but that extra point for them helped. But it is they're in tough. They're in tough, and the Leafs did it to them, and that's a good feeling that the Leafs could be on the other side of something like that for once, which is great. And if we take a look at the playoff. Or before we get to the playoffs, the Leafs' schedule coming up. I mean, they play tomorrow against the Devils, home and home with the Devils. They play them again Thursday. The Leafs still have 5 games left. Some teams above them that they're chasing do not. I say some teams, but it's literally just Florida, who they play next Tuesday. A couple winnable games in here, I think, definitely. That's going to be a playoff atmosphere in Florida next Tuesday. And then obviously you play the Lightning, which is going to be a great game the next night as well to close out the season. And then it's playoffs on April 20th, that Saturday. It's going to be very interesting. And this is how the playoff format shakes out right now. The Leafs still obviously not having home ice advantage in the first round, but it's still definitely possible, especially because they have a game in hand and they still play Florida, like I mentioned, next week. And down there at the bottom too, you see Pittsburgh. They could have been in that spot right now. They do not. I don't know. It's not looking good for them. And Detroit does have a game in hand, so that's going to be pretty interesting. But the Leafs could still play Tampa. Like, it's still possible. It's going to be very interesting. I think it's going to end up as the Leafs and Panthers. That is my prediction so far. We'll see how the rest of the week shakes out. But it's still possible that they don't play each other. Oh, and the best part about it all, the Leafs could still finish, like I mentioned, with home ice advantage. I'm not sure if the Leafs want home ice advantage in this series against Florida, but we can get into that in another video. So let me know in the comments what you thought of Auston Matthews scoring his 65th of the season, the Leafs overtime win. What you think of the lineup as well. I mean, there's a lot of guys who still need to come back from injury. They're still missing Edmondson. He should be back sometime next week, they said, which is great. He'll be ready for the playoffs. But let me know what you think of that, and Nick and I will see you for another video tomorrow.